Okay, today's speaker is Herman Slutsky, the former restaurant manager of Hemmingway's, one of our favorite places back in the 60s. And he'll tell you all about it. There were several important historic musicians, Tiny Tim, I don't know if y'all have heard of him, Lionel Richie and Wayne Cochran. I'm not getting it. Okay, here he is. Herman Slutsky is the restaurant manager.
Good afternoon. I'm glad you're here, and I want to thank Karen and the Hollywood Historic Society for allowing me to lecture today. This is something I don't usually do, but with the amount of time I spend at the Hemmingway restaurant in Hollywood, the historic Hemmingway restaurant, I know quite a bit more about it than they put in here. Just a little background of myself. I'm born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Ended up going to school in Washington, D.C. area, and out of school I was drafted into the Army. Came out of the Army in 1970 and went to work for the government, U.S. government, and with General Services Administration's Buildings Management. From there I went to work with, at the time, way back in the early 70s, was the Pay Board, Price Commission, when they had a wage and price freeze on. And about a year after I had been with them, my father, who had just moved down to Florida, became ill. And I came down and left the business and took care of him for a while and ended up staying in Florida. So I've been here since in Hallandale area. I started out in 1973 and then moved to Hollywood in 1986. So today basically we're going to see about the historic Hemmingway restaurant in Hollywood. And of course, as you know, back in 1924, Joseph Young was the person who actually got Hollywood moving and brought over all the years where we are today. This was the plaque that was put up in 1925. Mr. Young had given the building, which you're about to see shortly, had given the building to the fire department, city hall, and police department. Soon after that, it became somewhere in between the 1920s, 30s, 40s. I have no idea other than the fact that people say it was a bordello.
But the Legion was still there too.
So this is the old Continental Bar and Package Store that was at 219 North 21st Avenue. And back in the time I was helping my father out, I did have to go to work, so I ended up working at a place in Hallandale Beach called the Hideaway Nightclub. That was owned by George Young and Audrey Young, and no relation to Joseph Young. After working with them for a while at the Hideaway, it was going to be torn down. They ended up actually purchasing or owning the building that is now, as you see in this picture, is not quite the way it was when they got into it. Just to give you an idea, some of the building was divided off. Whoever owns it now, I have no idea. But this is actually the beginning of the staircase where they would come in the front door of the Hemmingway and they'd turn left. And whoever owns it now blocked that off, and there's another place on the left side. But this just gives you an idea what the staircase looked like going up to the second floor, and you probably heard stories about the second floor there before things, and it's not necessarily all true. At least I have a gentleman who, after the Youngs bought and opened up, well, before they opened it up, they had to clean it up, renovate it, and freshen it up. And coming from the Hideaway, which had to be torn down, I went over there with them and was the only bartender at the time. And I helped them get it set up so that in 1976, they opened up the restaurant to the public.
Can you go back to the names you showed? You passed over the names of Burke and all those people who went there.
Sure. These are some of the patrons that used to come into the Hemmingway restaurant. There. Whoop. All right. Hold on. Got too many computers there. No. And this is back in the early days when I was tending bar at the now historic Hemmingway restaurant. And Congressman Burke, Al Hines, you see a number of them there, but there were so many other people who actually over the months and years that came through there were very local. They had the, again, somebody had mentioned the attorneys, a number of attorney offices coming and going from there. And if you see any familiar names, I'm sure there's a lot more around too. And this happens to be the office I had taken over as manager when I was up there, and a young lady that used to sit behind me named Cecily Glasso was over here. She also used to be a bartender and a server at the restaurant too for us. So after getting the restaurant settled in and opened up, George Young had some unique ideas about the way that the restaurant would be operated, what types of food that they would serve, how they would serve it, dress code. He had a lot of unique ideas and put them to use in the very beginning. And one of the items in the very first months of the Hemmingway was he would put a bottle of seltzer water on the table, in the center of the table. After probably about 6 months, it got a little old because they'd run out of seltzer all the time and they'd have to get extra orders of it. So I guess he went back to water. I'm going to show you a little video along the way. Before I do, I just want to mention something. Well, the restaurant had been opened in '76. A gentleman walked in one day to talk to the George and Audrey Young, and I don't know if he was collecting any money or rent or whatever from them, but his name happened to be Robert or Bob Jones. Now, what's interesting is in the handouts that were given up with the rest of the paraphernalia, Bob Jones's father was the original owner of the Continental Package Store and Bar, where the Hemmingway ended up being located with the George and Audrey Young. So he came in, talked to them, and came over to me. He said hello, and he said, when I was a young man, about 10, and I think it was 10 to 12 years old, he said at the time, if I could remember that, he said, yeah, I used to help my father clean up at the end of the night when they would close up the nightclub and bar, and I would have to clean up. He said, one of the interesting facts is, as people were sitting at the bar, which you'll see in the video or along the way later, later, is that when they would pay their bill, they would get change. If they got loose change, they would throw it up on the back bar, which had a flat top to it. And at the end of the night, Bob would go up there and collect his money, and that would be his pay from his father. And this went on for a while. And then another interesting fact about the back bar there is that there's curved wood there. And that was done by, when the bar was built there, it was plywood that was soaked in water for a long period of time until they were able to actually bend it around on both ends. And that was at both ends of the bar. And you'll see pictures of the bar after George Young got into it and fixed it up. And the very last comment that I received from Bob Jones was that he had to go upstairs also and clean up these little rooms that they had up there. Now there's lots of stories about these little rooms and all of which I never saw. But so he was telling me when he'd go up there to clean up, he'd have to clean the sofas and take the pillows off and make sure they were cleaned up. And occasionally he would find $50 and $100 bills under the pillows. So needless to say, there was also the fact that people were always saying that that's where the men took their ladies upstairs. But I don't know anything about it. Also, just looking back over trying to find history of that particular place, the Continental Bar, there was nothing that I could find that would give me any information as to what it was, other than somebody said it was a bordello for so many years, up until the 50s. There's nothing conclusive about it.
There's one thing, it was right across from the train terminal that came into town. And it would have been a handy place for people to come and go from. So the only bar in the area could step off the train and go right in there.
Oh, hold that for another time. But thank you. I never wasn't around the area So I'm going to go into the restaurant itself and give you a little.
Well, the restaurants are eager to please you.
Food that is both excellent and unique. And do as the Phantom Diner did several weeks ago and lead your party to Hemmingway's at 219 21st Avenue in Hollywood. For here in what was once the original City Hall building, one enters a plush turn-of-the-century setting of tasteful elegance and soft intimacy. My dining partner, a dazzling delight from Del Rey, and I both began with Hemingway's internationally famous onion soup. Not the usual heavy cheese, soggy crouton fare that one can experience anywhere up or down the boulevard, but rather an extremely tasty blend of Swiss and Parmesan blended with care into fresh onions and a hearty but not aggressive beef stock. Excellent. Next appeared the Hawaiian coconut shrimp, succulent shrimp prepared in a sweet and sour sauce of herbs, cherries, and light seasonings. Different and superb. Your Phantom Diner opted for the steak divan, an interesting treatment of carved sirloin layered with garden fresh broccoli and embraced with a tasty mushroom sauce. Both entrees were garnished with pineapple, stuffed celery, delicious Black Forest garlic bread, and for an interesting twist, that's right, a banana. We topped off our early evening culinary excursion into this world of thankfully controlled opulence with Hemingway's specialty drink, French Cafe. A blend of orange liqueur delicately mixed with coffee and topped with whipped cream for my licentious lovely, while I reveled in a soothing combination of imported brandy and cream de cocoa. Well, my sweets, let's see how Hemingway's rated. Service elegant, experienced, excellent. Cuisine unique is the word, very good. Price arrived before 6 p.m. Reasonable. One moment, my dear. It's your mother. Did you really tell her we'd be studying Hemingway at the library all evening?
That's great.
He was quite a storyteller.
Where was that made? Does that play on television or what?
Well, the restaurants are eager to please you.
I'm sorry, what did?
I was just curious where that would be played. They didn't have YouTube back then. I mean, where would that long video be played?
Where would it be played?
Where'd you video?
The video,
Yeah.
that's an old video I had taken and put together, had some help from my wife putting it together. We have another one later on that I'll show, you'll see some more.
On TV, was that
Commercial.
a commercial?
No, that was actually, that was part of a commercial from a TV announcer back in those days. And I added it on to everything else, so you'll see some more of that along the way. But more important now, let's get to the good stuff. This is the first band of major knowledge that the Hemmingway restaurant had when they opened up, and that goes back into the later parts of 1978, beginning of 79. And Buddy Rich with a 17-piece orchestra was the first major player. You can see, I don't know if you can tell from here, but this is Buddy Rich here, the drummer, world-renowned drummer. And back here was actually the south part of the Hemmingway nightclub where the band set up, all the way across there. We had a number of other major entertainers that were world-renowned that played at the Hemmingway, but in between there we also had our piano players, our singers, which I can name later on, but right now I'll continue with this, so you'll have an idea who else was there. Wayne Cochran, who was a very local individual, he had been on television, a number of television shows over the years previously. I'm not sure if he moved on to Miami at that time, but he had been very popular also when he came down here of performing in the Miami area with his CC Riders. Wayne Cochran, very interesting if you never saw him or heard of him. He entertained the audience. He would throw napkins up in the air, make people laugh, make them look up. He'd go back behind the bar and stand up on the bar and walk down the bar and pour drinks for people. George Young did not like that because he didn't get paid for that part of it. So, but Wayne Cochran was one of his, I guess, famous songs that still may be around somewhere is Going Back to Miami. And there's Wayne Cochran after throwing the napkins all over the place.
This is a fun night.
Next entertainer who also was extremely world-renowned xylophone player is Lionel Hampton, and that happens to be me back in my younger days. But all the people that came through there, the entertainers were just pleasant people, entertained as much as they could, even in their older years. This duo here, there's two pictures there, but this is a brothers called the Ronalds Brothers. They were just entertaining. They were only there for a short time, but they would play the accordion and walk around to the different tables and say hello to people, just to keep them entertained before the major entertainment began. And this is them just getting friendly with some of the guests. Gentleman over here, Alex Giuliani, was the maitre d' at the time, and also became the night maitre d' and day manager downstairs. This is the cocktail hour. You can see at cocktail hour when people came after work, usually ran between 4 to 6. It was just packed. There was, drink prices were better. They had plenty of food to pass out down at the end of the bar. And you can't really see the back bar here, but I'll show you some pictures later of the different decor. This is a lady that used to be the a barmaid there for many years. Babette, she'd been around the area for a long time, very nice lady and did a good job. Again, that's the back bar over here, and you'll see a better picture of it. Moving along with the entertainers, Dizzy Gillespie was been there, at least 3 or 4 times over the years after entertaining all over the world. He got tired enough and came into the Hemmingway restaurant to perform, and this is the upstairs banquet room. Just gives you an idea. George Moore over here was the entertainment director, and in between breaks and before practice, they'd be upstairs just getting ready for the evening. Now, there's a face you might know or might have heard him sing.
You should sit at the bar with them.
You used to say. And of course, you know his name too, right? Tiny Tim, that's right. Or Herbert Buckingham Corey. He started playing at the Hemmingway in 1981. He was down here, and they got him some nights at the Hemmingway. He was there for about a week. Also at that time, I was able or had to take him and pick him up at his hotel, which was right around the corner at the Holiday Inn, and bring him over there for his performances. And then occasionally would have to take him to the pharmacy so he could get his makeup to put on. And you'll hear more about that as we go on. One place, I don't know if you'd remember, the Pompano racetrack was sulky races, that when Tiny Tim was in town, they had a race named after him and honored the Hemingway restaurant at the time. This is Tiny in the middle there. Next to Tiny is George Young's wife, Audrey Young, myself, Al Gerace, who was the kitchen manager, and a couple of the maitre d's, Harvey Ross, somebody had asked me about earlier. That was Harvey. And this is just a note from the manager at the Pompano racetrack when we were there. And back to Tiny Tim, he entertained everywhere. When he wasn't on stage, he would go around talking to the people, autographing papers, signing his name. He was very, very, very happy to work and talk with people. A little more about Tiny.
Just never stop giving up. Even if you don't make it. To a dying day, it must be said, he never quit.
Tiny is no quitter. He's back singing and entertaining audiences at Hollywood's Hemmingway.
The last time I remember when I was about 8 years old, and that's the first. This is the first time I've seen him since then, and I think it's great. He hasn't changed very much in looks, gained a few pounds, but I think it's great to see that he's still doing what he's doing. It's nice to see him here at choir.
In the future, Tiny would like to star in the movies. So if there are any Hollywood producers out there, Tiny would like that movie to be a horror film. He'd like to think of himself as the eternal troubadour singing those courtly songs of love.
If tonight's movie story is not Andy Gibb. Yesteryear, when songs had lyrics and singers were singers. That's what he's always hoped would happen in the 50s when his name was Herbert Buckingham Corey, a no name with a big name hanging around Greenwich Village. Not to the mid-60s, when an agent decided little would help him make it big. Had most of us heard the, I think we can all agree, unique stylings of... Remember, 1969, The Tonight Show, A Wedding to Miss Vicky? A marriage and fame were fleeting. How long have you been back? I haven't gone away. Just on played at smaller places. Going to be a big deal again? Do you want to be a big deal again? I would like to make it one more time. I love it. Singing, the music, the applause. Well, that's not bad either. So 6 nights a week, a nearly 50 and not so teeny tiny plucks away at it. Here at Hemmingway's in Hollywood through the 19th. Then it's onward, and at least geographically, upward. Pittsburgh, New York. That's near the Canadian border. For the record, he's got a new one out. Called Zoot Zoot Zoot, Here Comes Santa and His New Space Suit, which he did not sing last night. Also for the record, the reviews Tiny gets aren't much different than they were in 1969.
I love his hair. He's got great hair.
In short, he's still tiny after all these years. For Yalter, who's watched here.
Just add a little bit of flavor to it. Tiny Tim and his first wife, Miss Vicky, after they had been married a couple years, probably about 10 years, I think, they got a divorce. But they also had a child named Miss Tulip. Further on down on the line, when Tiny used to play at the Hemmingway from 81 to 90, I'd say at least twice a year and maybe 3 times a year, depending on if he wasn't playing at the circus or over in Australia, making movies, singing over there and entertaining. He was a very interesting individual to talk to too, although you get a different flavor from talking to him in real life than from his songs and everything, because most of his songs go back to the 1920s, and he loved to play those songs. But moving on a little bit further, we'll have some information. Phil Rudy was our piano player during the daytime. Among other piano players that we had at the Hemmingway restaurant, a number of them, Ernie Goldsmith, even Commissioner John Williams used to play at the Hemmingway for a cocktail hour or just early evening. But this is Phil, and that happens to be his mother, used to come in and listen to him all the time. Talking about Ernie Goldsmith, this is Ernie Goldsmith here bringing in Al Hibbler, and I don't know if you remember or know the song Unchained Melody, but he was the first person singing that song in the 40s. He was with a big band group and continued on with it, and he sang at the Hemmingway a number of times over the years. Blind piano, no, he wasn't a piano player, but he was blind, and the piano player would bring him in. Also a very famous individual was Nat King Cole, but Freddie Cole was his brother, one of 3. And this is Freddie Cole. He used to play at the Hemmingway, and I'd say at least 5 times he played there, because every time he came he would give me a record album of his. And to this day I still have them. But he was the brother of Nat King Cole, who performed at the Hemmingway. I will let you listen to some of his.
40s and 50s, it was Nat King Cole. More recently, a young lady by the name of Natalie Cole has kept the musical tradition alive. So as Neighbor Jan reports, there's also a Freddie. Cole nobody knows. It's a few minutes before 8 p.m. and it's time to prepare for the first set of the evening. There will be no fanfare at tonight's performance for this distinguished-looking gentleman. He is not as well known as his niece Natalie, nor his legendary older brother Nat. He's known by many as... Freddie is hoping to have a new beginning in his musical career. Born in Waukegan, Illinois in 1931 and performing in front of audiences since he was 9, Freddie has spent the past 30 years working in clubs, hotels, and as a music teacher. He studied at the Juilliard School of Music and also the New England Conservatory. Music and show business was always a part of the family. Even above the chitter-chatter and small talk in this Hollywood dinner club, you can always hear the melodic sound of the Freddie Cole Quartet. It's a sound that echoes the style of Nat King Cole, and although comparisons are inevitable, this sound is not an imitation.
He has a style all of its own, but yet he still is very reminiscent of his brother. I don't think he can help that.
Freddie's also an excellent pianist and incorporates some of the things that he's learned in the past, and I'm learning from him, you know, so I enjoy hearing him play, and I think he appreciates what I do also.
The breadth of his music, from blues to ballads to jazz, it's just show tunes, it's a joy. He's a very talented man.
While taking a break between sets, Freddie sometimes mingles with the crowd.
You know, I know when it's a little bitty baby, I know his brother better not than him.
Freddie is at home when he's asked to sign autographs by some of those who are just finding out who Freddie Cole is. Some of them feel he's destined for stardom.
I know somewhere along the way he's going to go up the ladder, and I want his autograph on a napkin like this, so I can say I've got it.
Freddie says he's climbed the ladder of success, but there has always been a lack of notoriety which has prevented him from reaching the top. But that doesn't bother him.
You know, that's good notoriety and that is bad notoriety. And fortunately, my family has been on the good side of it all the way, and I'm happy about that, so that doesn't bother me at all. And I'm of the assumption that every dog has his day.
So as you can see there, Nat King Cole passed away in 1965. Freddie Cole was a jazz singer, and they had, actually there were two other brothers, actually three other brothers. There was Freddie, Eddie, and Ike. Unfortunately, Freddie passed away recently. Also entertaining at the Hemmingway was Lorna Luff, the daughter of Judy Garland.
Wow.
And probably stepsister to Liza Minnelli. And Jerry Lewis happened to be in attendance at her performance when she was at the Hemmingway nightclub. J&B room was the little room off to the north side of the building, which was the new room when they renovated and built up the banquet room upstairs to hold 120 people, where we had a number of people go through, weddings, bar mitzvahs, meetings, the Kiwanis Club, and then getting back to some of the entertainers. If you're familiar at all with Monty Rock III, he was an old-timer that used to play at the Hemmingway, and he started out as a hairdresser for a number of years up in New York City. And he always wanted to get into singing, so he kept on trying, and he finally came along. This is just to give you a little taste.
It's 21 years of the word no. No, you can't make it. No, you can't sing. No, you can't act. I said, I know, but I want the job.
Well, Monty has survived the word no. And before the evening performance at Hollywood's Hemmingway, Monty spends almost an hour making up his character.
Sir Monty Rock the Third.
I become that clown. I become that person that entertains. Without a makeup, it doesn't work, because I'm just a little kid, Joey. I'm a Bronx guy with a lot of ego, a lot of who really believes that you have to give the people what you want to give yourself. I want to give them my addicts. I want to give them Monty.
And along with Monty comes love.
Sometimes I get confused because my author is a cartoon, and then there's a person in me. There's a person that does sometimes suffer from insecurities. There's a person that sometimes really feels like nothing's going to happen. And then there's a person that knows the public out there loves me, and I know that they're wonderful people that know that if I survive, they'll survive. So I'm the survivor.
I've never seen him before. It's really good.
I know who I am. I'm Monty Rock III, and I'm very proud of it.
I think he's now Monty Rock IV, isn't he?
Well, almost. But meanwhile, Sir Monty Rock III is still having a ball, and so is his audience.
Never heard you.
Just to move along, this is Al Drace, was the kitchen manager for a number of years. This just gives you an idea of some of the major events that he catered to in the restaurant, and you can see from the background some of the decor that was added into the building. Mr. Young was very, like I say, he was unique in his ideas and his talent for picking out what to put on the walls, and a lot of the items are still there, although part of them left when he left. This is the Capodimonte chandeliers they used to have in the restaurant. I don't know if there's some still there. This is glass, stained glass that was put over lights here that he had specially put in. You can see a number of the items on that. Again, more Capodimonte, and this is what they call the J&B room, which was the new addition that was put on. And again, the ceiling lights, they were stained glass. Getting back to the bar, many people think, well, or talk about it from the flyer that was passed out, that was brought in from Yankee Stadium. It was not brought in from Yankee Stadium. Bob Jones verified the fact that his father had that built when he was a kid. And this is what I was talking about, where they had the plywood boards put into water and curved. It's curved there, it's curved here on both ends. So also up top, what I mentioned earlier about Bob Jones, the fact that he used to collect the change up on the flat roof, top of the back bar, that was up here all the way through in his days. These items were put on when George Young took over the place. Many months of painstaking painting and putting up there along. And when it was the historic Hemmingway restaurant, the whole entire top had 4 shelves of liquor and wines of every variety as a sample as to what you could order. As you can see, it's quite full there, but not quite as full as it used to be. Who's that? Okay, but just to mention to you, in 1983 is when the historic Hemmingway restaurant really got the name of historic, because that's when they made it, the City Hall made it the historic site at that time. And this is, again, that's the plaque that's there, the entrance to the door, and behind it was the stairway that I showed you in the beginning, going up to the 2nd floor where we had meetings and nightclub entertainment up there when they had weddings or birthday parties, Kiwanis Club. Some of the extra parties we had there, believe it or not, that's when my wife and I got married, we actually got married in Ohio, but we came back to Florida, and George Young and his wife took over the entire restaurant to, I guess, honor us with being there. As you can see, some of the decor is still there today. I'm not sure exactly what's there, but pictures, there's still a lot of pictures there. Larry Spurgeon was our head chef for quite a few years. Also, Chef Joseph Smith was there. When they closed the Hemmingway up, Joseph and his wife ended up opening up a little shop off of Johnson Street, about 28th and Johnson, because he was from Jamaica, and he opened up a little restaurant with us serving Jamaican food. So I haven't heard from him in a number of years, but it was there for quite a while. Also, during the time of the Hemmingway restaurant, there was a gentleman, I don't know if you know Keith Hesse. He used to be the president of the Chamber of Commerce of Hollywood at that time. And over the years, he was there, plus we had different people from different departments of the city come in. But we would have an annual golf tournament, and they would have, afterwards, they would have food and drink up at the Hemmingway restaurant, up in the banquet room. And Keith was the announcer most of that time. He also was the head of the Broward County Fairs back in those days. And then Ina Nadler came along afterwards, after Keith moved up to Virginia. As you can see, this was the third annual tournament, and Miss Polly girl was there somewhere in the audience, walking around. Also, we had a lot of businessmen come in, and this was one of the events that we had a business lunch set up for them. Again, back up to the banquet room with all the people that we had meetings with. Some of the local entertainers that were around was Miguel Reyna, Pete Argero, Mark and Clark. We even had people from Gloria Estefan's band come up at midnight. After midnight, they'd get off work in Miami, and they'd come up to the Hemmingway and play with our band at the time. At the time, the restaurant was open till, or originally open till 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they changed the law, so they pushed it back to 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the meals ended around 2 in the morning, cleaned up. I'd like to just mention, back in the 1980s, there was a big artist colony that sort of faded away after so many years because people moved out of the area and stores closed up. I'd just like to say this is my brother Stanford Slutsky, was an artist, and him and David Maxwell, who was a pointillist artist, teamed up in 1989 to open up the art gallery at 1938 Hollywood Boulevard when Mayor Galanti was in office, who brought back the art district again and enlivened the art district for quite a few years, and then they started building upon that. And this is some of Stanford Slutsky's work. Now, it's food items that are huge. That was just the New York Times even got in and put a word in for the Hemmingway, which was a plaque that was up on the walls. And then in the beginning of 1991, I had put in my notice that I was leaving, and they had a going away party for me at that time. Some of the people that were in attendance was Richard Lawler, an attorney, and Louis Cohen, an attorney, many other people that gave me courage to move on. And when I left there, they gave me a going away party. And again, this was in one of the Hollywood Gazette newspapers. Upstairs, this is the way it looked upstairs now where the banquet room used to be. I think I copied these pictures from somebody because I couldn't get in the building on that side of the building. So this is the way that the building looks nowadays. And just to give you a little additional information, this was the one side that was added on. This is where the restaurant is now, Runas. Upstairs was another meeting room, it's a very small meeting room that was added on by George Young. Over here is the main entrance to the building when it was the Hemmingway restaurant. But now the building is closed off like here. That's where that staircase goes up to the upstairs second floor that I mentioned. These were the original windows to the rooms that were up there. The ones I said were the little rooms where the men may have gone upstairs. At that time, it was just storage space, office space for us and the entertainers. And then, I don't have it on this picture, but on your pamphlets, you'll get another picture of the building. In the back of the building, when George Young had it built, he had to build the banquet room up over the original building of what started out as the publishing company. And over the years, as it became very famous and historic, they had to build that banquet room and whatever was up there over the original. So the original building is still there, but you can't tell. One other interesting fact about it is, if you've ever been in there, in the restaurant, in fact, even now, they have restrooms in the far back as you are there. Originally, those were the 2 cells for the police department. Back in the 1925, 26, 27 era. Actually, I believe they're still there because when I left there, they were there, but there was glass over the windows and nobody could tell. When the new owners along the way, there must have been 5 owners of the building or something, taking over different restaurants and entertainment, but they renovated those back rooms so you can't see it. There was even a window there at all. So if someday they do anything with it, they may find those bars are still there. And I'd like to thank you all for coming today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to entertain.
How do you get the acoustics so good in there?
I'm going to ask you first, what's your name? What's your name?
My name is Chris Nielsen. I used to go to Hemmingway's a lot. I'm born and raised here.
Okay, Chris.
And the acoustics in there were incredible. I don't know if
Yes.
it's special, just the size, it was so tight and small, or the wood, but it sounded so good.
Well, when the Youngs came in, and they really fixed the place up tremendously over the years, not only in the beginning when I worked with them, but they put in the hanging curtains, the pictures and everything that they put in there, and the pictures that actually they had artists come in and do the work on the walls. If you were ever on the other side on the J&B room, I forget the name of the artist at this time, but the whole side wall used to be pictures that were up there. Nowadays, I think they painted over it, unfortunately. But that's probably softened the carpet. They used to have carpeting in there instead of just tile floor, so that softened the noise, it softened the music, and
Well, it wasn't soft.
well, no, when the bands played, of course. Yes.
Did you discuss how Hemmingway got its name? Again, I missed it. How did the name of the restaurant get it? Is there any connection with the Hemmingway?
No, this is a Hemingway with 2 M's. Ernest is 1 M, but Mr. Young, George Young, the owner, was very unique in the things he did and what he wanted to do, him and his wife, and they came up with the idea to call it the Hemmingway Restaurant so that people would ask, oh, are you related to Hemingway? Yeah, also in the beginning, I don't know if you noticed in the front, there was some black painting. There was a plaque before it became historic. It was just called the Hemmingway Restaurant, and then underneath it, it was Mills, Mead, and Mirth, and gave the hours of the opening and closing. So they changed things as they went along. Also, some of the other entertainers that were there, like people like Connie Francis came in one night and sang. Many entertainers, Ahmed Jamal, I have a whole list, but it's too long to go over. You know, anything else?
Lady here.
Oh.
Yeah, now, what are they doing with it now? And what was it before it became Hemmingway?
I think you may have missed it. It was the Continental Bar and Package Store, which was just an old bar with fans and pool tables. And the front end is where the package store, you could go in and buy your bottles and liquor and wine. And that's the one that Mr. Jones's father owned. I think this young lady here.
What is it handing out?
Well, right now there's an the restaurant there is called Runas, which is on the left side. And that's a Peruvian restaurant. They also have a little area, you probably didn't see it, said The Tavern over the doorway. They made a new doorway to the old bar area where it used to be the Hemmingway, but a lot of things have changed as far as the decor.
And how about with all this construction going on? What's going to happen? You don't know what's going to happen to that place.
I
historic.
Don't know if anybody knows. This lady here.
I have a question, kind of a funny question. So I noticed with the entertainers, there was a lot of diversity in the entertainers. What about the clientele? Did you have a diverse client, in your time, did you have a diverse clientele?
Oh yeah, we used to have people waiting in line just to get in there and making reservations ahead of time. But again, yeah, when Hollywood sort of had a decline in the mid-'80s, there was a decline, and all they had was people going to work and going home at 5 o'clock in the evening. And so when the Hemmingway restaurant opened up, it added a lot of life to the area. That people, would come down for the winter and find out about the Hemmingway. Oh yeah, yes, yeah. In fact, at that time there were, let's see, I can name at least 6 different nightclubs that were in the area between there, Hallandale, and starting in the northern part of Miami. There were a lot of nightclubs at that time, but the Hemmingway, I think, did very well.
Because my question is, sometimes there were places that even though the entertainers might be ethnic, the clientele.
It was a very varied clientele, yeah. I mean, again, it opened up at 11. From 11 till 2 was lunch. The Abrams Anton law office right around the corner. The Bank of America was down the street. We had a number of people from those establishments come in. Let me get Stevens. Steve.
So back in around 2005 to about 2015, that was somewhat vacant, but then it became a nightclub. I think it was even a gay club for a minute.
It was 5 different things between 1991 and 2000.
So one night I was upstairs in one of the, quote, rooms,
Right.
sexy rooms or whatever. And, we were just hanging out in there, and the bartender came in, and he opened up something in the wall, and he put something in there, and it dropped down into the basement. I said, "What's that?" And he said, "Well, that's the bank, the vault thing." And so I'm wondering, did they use that at the time when you were there?
No, when the Youngs left the Hemmingway, and that was the mid-1991. So at that time, whoever came in and took over the building,
it was some kind of shoot that he said
they
one time
changed
in the
everything.
basement.
The whole upstairs was completely changed. It became office space. It became empty space. They took out one of the main little dining rooms as on the right side of the doorway as you came in, which was a cute little room where during our cutting of the wedding cake, you may have seen the decor there. I don't know who is there now, what they did with the place, but I know that from 91 on, there were at least 5 different people who came in with different ideas as to how to earn money, and none of them lasted. And then they closed up. I think Runas has been there the longest of the 5.
Can you talk about the menu? The menu was fantastic. You had the stuffed avocados with crab meat, a delicious black forest ham, Hemmingway.
Well, I don't want everybody to get hungry. You can look at the poster board back there or some of the menus over the years. I mean, $5.95 for a meal for lunches. Lady in the yellow.
Oh, hi.
Hi, sorry.
My curiosity is getting the best of me. Are you related to the Slutskys in Sullivan County in the Catskill region?
Are you talking about the Nevele?
No.
When they used to have the Nevele country? Yeah. No. Most of my family is from Pittsburgh. I have probably some in the Chicago area.
Must have been.
Yeah, and down here. Any other questions over here?
Did you have any regulars that ran tabs and kind of freeloaded, never paid their bills?
It's a good question. I wouldn't know that.
What was the question?
Something about people that would come in and not pay their bills. Yes. Yes.
Well, yeah, I that's fascinating. I'm doing like this. I never knew anything about it much after 1930. It was really fast. I didn't even remember about it at all. I lived here all that time. I didn't remember the bar that was there until you mentioned it. Oh, what a grubby place that was. But way back when Joseph Young built it, First, I have a picture in this book of the printing press, what it looked like on the ground floor. So it was very active printing press. And upstairs, those little 4 little windows upstairs, I know I was there years ago, those were the offices for the editors.
Right. That was in the 1924 and 25 before it became City Hall and Fire Department, and then they had the offices upstairs.
And then they moved into City Hall, then it was not the fire patrol. It was the public office brother. So they obviously didn't have the Bordello up there anymore.
Thank you.
So it came later, but anyway, it is in this book if you want to read more about the earliest part, but I've learned a great deal.
Thank you. Gentlemen?
Yeah, I can talk from experience. There's no prejudice down there. You live like attorneys in there for lunch and for supper. North Day, South Broward State Planning Group, under Judge Mort Abrams, and Luke Holmes was a member, used to have their meetings there. And Paul had time to come down, along with Gene Lesser. And it was a great place to meet and eat and fun, and it was safe.
Thank you.
I shared offices with Luke Holmes for 8 years. And I'd say at least 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah. Again, you're going to hear a lot of different things about the Hemmingway restaurant, because after 14 years of being there, I spent a lot of time there. I mean, late night, I don't know what happened. I went home. And thank you again for coming, and hopefully we'll continue to do that.